On the sidelines of this year's APEC summit in Peru, President Yoon is set to hold separate talks with the Chinese president as well as the leaders of the U.S. and Japan amid recent geopolitical changes. U.S. President-elect Trump's transition team is reportedly planning to end the Biden administration's trademark EV subsidy, fueling Korea's concerns over uncertainty under the Trump leadership. Meanwhile, Seoul was put back on the U.S. monitoring list for its foreign exchange policies. The Greenbook projects the economy to recover at a gradual pace amid increasing uncertainties and omits the description suggesting signs of recovery in demand at home. It's November 15th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. President Yoon Suk-yeol's diplomatic agenda in Peru includes key bilateral interactions with his global partners, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, coming at a crucial time. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young files this report from Lima.
President Yoon Suk-yeol will hold a bilateral summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday and set out ways to enhance trilateral cooperation with the leaders of the United States and Japan amid various geopolitical changes in recent weeks. This comes as the South Korean leader attends the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Lima, Peru. According to Yoon's Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho, the South Korean and Chinese leaders will have their first sit-down in 2 years.
Since the Korea-Japan-China summit held in Seoul in May, both South Korea and China have expanded communication and exchanges at various levels. Tomorrow, the two leaders are expected to discuss various measures to promote economic cooperation and people-to-people exchanges between the two countries, as well as exchange in-depth views on regional situations, including the Korean Peninsula.
Also on Friday, Yoon will hold a much-anticipated trilateral summit with US President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The three sides will review progress on their agreements made at Camp David last year, which agreed to institutionalize their three-way cooperation on deterring North Korea's nuclear missile threat and handling security and economic challenges in the region. The leaders will meet amid concerns that the incoming Trump administration in the US may not maintain the trilateral partnership, and as tensions rise over North Korea's deployment of troops to aid Russia's war against Ukraine. A senior official told reporters in Lima that the three leaders may set out measures to preserve the Camp David framework, possibly with the launch of a trilateral secretariat. Yoon and Ishiba are also scheduled to hold a separate meeting on Saturday to discuss ways to develop bilateral relations ahead of next year's 60th anniversary of normalizing diplomatic ties. While Yoon's office is arranging a one-on-one with Biden, the official suggested a meeting with President-elect Donald Trump is likely to be difficult in the coming days, as it has been less than a fortnight after his election, and as the incoming administration is currently focusing on domestic affairs. During his 8-day trip to Latin America, Yoon will hold summits with the leaders of Peru, Vietnam, Brunei and Canada, and likely call for solidarity in curbing North Korea's military cooperation with Russia. Engaging in back-to-back diplomacy, Yoon's office says the South Korean president aims to hold bilateral meetings with around 10 world leaders at the APEC summit in Peru and the G20 conference in Brazil. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Lima.
Beyond bilateral interactions, the South Korean president is poised to partake in the Multilateral APEC meeting, noting the importance of the group's role in protecting multilateral trade. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon explains his agenda.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Forum Summit starts on Friday in Lima, with President Yoon Suk-yeol taking part in the world's biggest economic cooperation body meeting. Yoon will kick things off with an unofficial discussion with all participating leaders.
President Yoon will emphasize the importance of a free and stable trade and investment environment and propose cooperative measures to reduce disparities among different social groups and promote shared benefits.
Specifically, Yoon will first note the importance of APEC's role in protecting multilateral trade, with South Korea leading calls to strengthen negotiation capacities for members. Yoon will also emphasize empowering vulnerable nations to seize opportunities, contributing to sustainable growth and enhancing AI capabilities for developing nations. And he will also use the opportunity to address North Korea issues.
President Yoon will also stress that the illegal military cooperation between North Korea and Russia poses a significant challenge to the rules-based international order and undermines APEC's forward-looking cooperation. He will strongly urge North Korea and Russia to cease their military collaboration.
Yoon will then attend the APEC Business Advisory Council lunch before heading to the APEC CEO Summit, where he will deliver a keynote speech. The CEO Summit will include a handover ceremony with the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry Chair and SK Group Chair, Che Tae-won becoming the next chair. After that, Yoon will join the dinner gala hosted by the current APEC chair, Peruvian President Dina Boluarte. On the morning of the 16th, Yoon and other APEC leaders will go on a retreat where they will be able to exchange ideas in a more comfortable setting, where he will also be handed the chairmanship of APEC. He is set to receive a varayok, a rod given to leaders in the Incan culture, by the Peruvian president as part of the handover ceremony.
President Yoon will outline the direction APEC should take and emphasize Korea's responsibility and commitment to contributing as next year's host country. Notably, he will highlight Korea's leadership in advancing regional efforts to promote digital transformation for small businesses and vulnerable groups.
President Yoon will also have the opportunity to share the vision for the APEC summit next year, which will be held in Gyeongju City, Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., the fate of the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act under the incoming Trump administration has been rendered bleak, as sources say plans are in the works to repeal it. Shin Ha-young explains what this could mean for South Korea.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's transition team is reportedly planning to end Biden's electric vehicle tax credit, according to Reuters, which cited two sources with direct knowledge of the matter. The report states that the Inflation Reduction Act, which provides EV subsidies of up to $7,500 will be killed. If the EV tax credit is repealed, it is expected to hit South Korea's EV and battery industries, which are already experiencing a slowdown in demand. Though he did not spell out specific policies, Trump frequently criticized Biden's EV mandate and promised to end it. As IRA requires the vehicles to be manufactured in the U.S. and includes certain requirements for critical minerals and battery components, current automaker Hyundai and Kia have few vehicles that qualify for the full IRA subsidy. But sources say since they have been investing heavily in building U.S. facilities to meet those requirements, a repeal could significantly disrupt their plans. In response, one expert stressed the need to quickly develop strategies to prepare for uncertainties and minimize the negative impacts of Trump's second term.
Weakening or repealing the Inflation Reduction Act could increase U.S. companies' dependence on China, which would undermine the Trump administration's strategy to reduce reliance on China. South Korea should clearly communicate these risks to the U.S. and emphasize that such a decision should be made carefully.
Regarding the Reuters report, South Korea's Trade Ministry said it has been monitoring potential changes to U.S. policies, but no decisions have been made regarding the IRA. Meanwhile, South Korea has been added to the U.S. Treasury Department's monitoring list for its foreign exchange policies just a year after it was removed. In a report to Congress on Thursday, the department included South Korea on its list of 7 countries. China, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, and Germany are the other nations. South Korea was excluded from the monitoring mechanism last November for the first time since April 2016. The list addresses concerns regarding potential currency manipulation. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
In the latest monthly economic evaluation, the Finance Ministry opted for comparatively cautious diction in describing the state of the country's economic direction. Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
South Korea's economy continues to recover at a gradual pace in light of growing uncertainties due to global economic conditions and geopolitical risks. That's according to the latest Economic Greenbook, a monthly economic assessment report released by the Finance Ministry on Friday. Compared to the previous month's report, the government has shifted its assessment from a recovery trend to a gradual economic recovery. And it's the first time in 7 months that a description stating that there are signs of recovery in domestic demand has been taken out. This adjustment is seen as a reflection of the country's third-quarter GDP growth of only 0.1% and the subsequent downward revisions of South Korea's growth forecast by major institutions. Key indicators of industrial activity also showed signs of a slowdown in September. Industrial output declined by 0.2% month-on-month, and the services and construction sectors also contracted. Retail sales, an indicator of consumer spending, were down by 0.4%, despite the government's expectations for an increase due to recorded growth in credit card spending and domestic car sales, as well as the Chuseok holiday. That being said, consumer sentiment did show a slight improvement, indicating a more optimistic outlook on the current economic situation. While domestic demand has shown mixed signals, exports continue to perform well on the back of the booming auto and IT sectors. Exports increased by 4.6% in October, marking 13 consecutive months of growth. The government maintained its assessment that inflation is stabilizing as consumer prices rose by 1.3% year-on-year in October. It also emphasized uncertainties arising from global economic conditions and geopolitical risks, especially with regard to the results of the U.S. presidential election.
Given the uncertainties surrounding the new U.S. administration's pledges, it's difficult to quantify the potential effects on our economy. However, it's important to note that while there are risks, there are also opportunities.
To address these challenges, the government plans to strengthen its response system in finance, trade and industry and provide targeted support to vulnerable sectors such as construction and small businesses. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
A former counselor at the North Korean embassy to Cuba, Lee Il-kyu, who defected to the South last year, has revealed confidential diplomatic cables that show Pyongyang's relentless drive to counter global pressure on its human rights record. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-un has this report.
Counselor Lee Il-kyu described the revelation as a North Korean version of WikiLeaks. The 12 diplomatic cables dating from 2016 to 2023 carry direct orders from leader Kim Jong-un to overseas workers aimed at countering global criticism of Pyongyang's human rights record.
I decided to release these documents because I want the world to see that the horrific human rights abuses in North Korea lead directly back to Kim Jong-un. He's not ignoring the international criticism. He's fully aware of it and actively directing strategies to deflect and suppress it.
Take a look at one example. A February 2020 diplomatic cable states, "The enemy has malicious political intent to overthrow our country with barbaric sanctions," underscoring how the regime sees international human rights pressure not as a genuine concern, but as part of a broader geopolitical struggle. We asked Counselor Lee why Kim Jong-un is so concerned about international criticism on human rights, given that information is so restricted in North Korea that residents are unlikely to ever hear it.
North Korea works tirelessly to block external information, but many channels still leak foreign news back into the country. When overseas workers return, stories of international condemnation of human rights inevitably spread among citizens, creating pressure on Kim Jong-un.
Professor Lee Jae-myung warns Counselor Lee's disclosures, while purposeful, may have unintended effects.
While this can raise human rights awareness, it also leads to tighter control over the elite. As long as Kim Jong-un remains in power and feels insecure, major improvements are unlikely.
Unification Minister Kim Yong-ho said the government plans to intensify multifaceted efforts to bring real improvements to North Korea's human rights situation. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In local politics, opposition leader Lee Jae-myung has been found guilty of election crime. The Seoul Central District Court on this Friday ruled that he had shared false information in the process of disputing corruption allegations while on the presidential campaign trail. Lee denied acquaintance with a man involved in a land development scandal in Seongnam during a media interview in 2021 and also reportedly made false claims during a related parliamentary audit. Accordingly, the court handed him a 1-year prison sentence, suspended for 2 years. Should this ruling stand, Lee looks to lose his legislative seat and be barred from partaking in elections for 5 years. Lee has vowed to appeal today's verdict. Tourism officials here in Seoul are offering foreign residents and travelers to the capital city the chance to indulge in a one-day cultural activity free of charge. Our Park Go-nu partook in one such event.
Experiencing Korean culture to the fullest for free. This is possible thanks to one-day classes taking place regularly at Seoul Cultural Lounge in Central Seoul that's been open since June this year. Here, foreigners living in or just visiting South Korea have a chance to savor their favorite type of Korean culture, from K-pop and K-beauty to traditional culture. Once a month, Seoul Cultural Lounge holds a special class, and for November, it's Taekwondo, Korea's national sport. On this day, around 20 foreigners, registered on a first-come, first-served basis, had the opportunity to learn techniques and even how to spar. I received the same uniform that's given to the participants for free as part of the one-day class. What usually takes about several weeks to master, this class allows you to be quite proficient in Taekwondo techniques that you've learned in just 1 hour. Check this out. Yup. Ha. Ha. Foreigners were able to learn more quickly thanks to the class being taught in English with the help of an interpreter.
So you get the chance to, try the sport yourself, and then it was nice to learn from an actual master, of course. Yeah, so it was fun.
It was a really good experience. I loved it. It's completely different than just visiting the country. Like we can do a total new experience, but I never did before. So.
Alongside the special classes, regular classes are also other options. Those classes include learning the latest Korean slang while watching K-dramas and movies, and coloring frames with traditional palace designs.
Like other programs where you can do art or creative things, and sometimes you have to pay a lot of money. So to get to do really cool art for free is something that I really like.
Over 8,000 foreigners from 78 countries visited this place already. They look very happy and say they will brag to their friends about their experiences after returning to their homes.
With several popular classes already underway, the Seoul Tourism Organization plans to keep opening more intriguing classes down the road. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Time now for our weekly arts and culture segment, and that means we have our culture correspondent, Song Yujin, here in the studio. Welcome, Yujin.
Hello, Jungmin.
What do you have for us today?
Well, Jungmin, today I would like to introduce a new policy that took effect exactly 2 weeks ago at one of South Korea's most popular tourist spots. And the reason why I wanted to bring this topic to our arts and culture this week is because it's fairly well known among locals, but it seems that many international visitors aren't familiar with it yet. So let's first take a look. Swarms of visitors are now a common sight in Seoul's Bukchon Hanok village. Tourists flock here to see the centuries-old Hanok houses up close. While this historic village delights tourists, life for residents is far less pleasant.
The noise, especially from rolling suitcases, disrupts our mornings and nights, especially since Hanok houses aren't well soundproofed. There's also the problem of littering, and shockingly, some visitors have even relieved themselves near our homes. Others have walked into our house, uninvited, and taken photos inside.
These issues, known as overtourism, have taken a toll, causing the village's population to drop by 27.6% over the past decade. To address this, the government in July this year designated Bukchon as Korea's first special management area under the Tourism Promotion Act.
Since 2018, we've set specific visiting hours for the village, and local residents have worked hard to enforce them. But without legal backing, they were often ignored. Now, with a legal framework in place, we can impose fines for violations.
The village is now divided into 3 color-coded zones based on overcrowdedness, with the strictest regulations in the red zone. So it's past 5 p.m. and I'm here in the red zone of the Bukchon Hanok village, where visitors aren't allowed to enter between 5 p.m. and 10 a.m. Now this area has been one of the most congested spots in the village because visitors come here to take photos in front of traditional Hanok houses. At 5 p.m., monitoring personnel take to the streets, guiding visitors out of restricted areas. The curfew applies to those simply sightseeing, with exceptions made for those visiting stores, museums, or staying in Hanok accommodation within the zone. Residents say they're already feeling a change.
We're thrilled as we can finally have peaceful mornings and evenings.
Tourists we spoke to understood the policy's purpose, but suggested clear guidance.
People, it's supper time till and have time to sleep and rest. So yeah, I think it makes sense. If there are hundreds of people around here, they couldn't rest. So yeah.
I think we could have done it if we Googled it a bit more. But I mean, like there could be a sign like further outside, so we wouldn't have like walked already into the street.
However, not everyone is on board. Some local business owners worry about the impact on their livelihoods.
The district office needs to communicate more with local business owners. Instead of strict daily restrictions, a more flexible approach, like limiting visitors during specific periods, might work better.
As overtourism becomes a growing issue worldwide, Bukchon Hanok Village's strategy offers a way to balance visitor experience with residents' quality of life.
So Eugene, as you mentioned, over-tourism is certainly not just a challenge for Korea. So how are other countries tackling this problem?
Well, I would like to introduce 2 notable examples, one in Venice, Italy, and the other in Kyoto, Japan. Now, starting with Venice, it became the first city in the world to introduce an entrance fee to visitors. So from April to July this year, tourists were required to purchase a one-day ticket costing €5, which is about $5.30. And the city plans to bring back the policy next year, with the fee doubling to €10. Meanwhile, in Japan, Kyoto's famous Gion Geisha district has also been grappling with littering, harassment of geishas, and overwhelming crowds. So in response, the city has restricted access to certain alleyways since April this year, too.
And turning back to Bukchon, are there any additional measures the district office is planning to prevent over-tourism?
There actually is. So starting from January 2026, the district is going to restrict the passage of charter tour buses, and this is to address illegal parking and traffic congestion. So the restrictions will be in effect year-round, including weekends and holidays, covering a 2.3-kilometer stretch of roads from Bukchon 5길 to Changdeokgung 1길. And exceptions will be made for commuter buses, school buses, and also neighborhood shuttle buses as well. But visitors can still park the buses outside and take a look around the Hanok village on foot. And although not legally enforced, the village is encouraging visitors to avoid coming on Sundays, designated it as a rest day for the alleyways.
All right, Eugene, thank you for the information and thank you for your report.
Thank you.
The hot sun shined today and it felt warm like spring. The temperature exceeded 20 degrees Celsius and this warm weather will continue tomorrow. However, between late afternoon and Sunday dawn, it will rain in the center parts of the country and the Jeollado provinces. The expected amount of rainfall is up to 30 millimeters in Gangwon-do province and up to 5 in Jeollanam-do province and the Chungcheong-do provinces. About 5 centimeters of snow could accumulate in Gangwon-do province, where temperatures are low. After this rain stops, the cold air will come down and they will get cold rapidly. Tomorrow, Daegu and Gyeongju will start off at 12 degrees, Chuncheon 10 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 21 in Daejeon, Daegu and Gyeongju, Gwangju 22 degrees. Next Tuesday, the morning temperature in Seoul will drop to below zero and it will be cold. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.